Thank you, everybody. It's a huge honor to be here today. I think I've got a little bit of an echo on my side, so please excuse me while I try and sort that out. However, while I'm discussing that, I just want to sort of acknowledge that some of our slides are not actually quite clear. So I'm going to do my utmost to read some of the items and make the rest available to you at another point. I think myself, I was introduced to collaboration very, very early on in my life through working in the skateboarding industry, which weirdly enough prepared me for future collaborations. As if those who don't know, skateboarding really is built around a skateboarder's personality or style, and products are developed around them, including the kind of music that they listen to. So, what was quite interesting about that kind of upbringing and immersing myself in sort of street culture in those spaces, and how came into fruition later on in my career was really whilst working at MTV Base as an on-air producer. And I think what's really important around that was the fact that my creative team were first based in sort of Italy, and I'd have to brief, African aesthetics to Italy, and then at a later stage, our creative moved to Poland. And as you know, what Polish people and what Italian people know about Africa is completely different. So I think that was really the starting point of understanding the necessity of localization and the delicacies and intricacies of different sort of personalities, archetypes, and of course culture. So I think all of us know that past trends have come and gone and replicated themselves over the years, and that we're looking at a very changing landscape, and a lot of these have been fast tracked as a result of COVID. But I think what we're starting to see more and more so is the proliferation of new business models. So today I'm going to give you some practical advice. For me, working with brands, it's really nice to know trends, but I think one of our biggest sort of products is the playbook, is how to utilize those in your business. So yes, collaboration is a lucrative business tool, and really it's around being able to sometimes double or triple your reach as a brand, and how you can forge into new markets or build relevancy, and how you can sort of navigate those spaces in an overcrowded market. So being able to create new opportunities for either repositioning or new partnerships to explore new product avenues. There's so many sort of opportunities in this space that we are seeing play out. However, when we speak about collaboration, we've also got to understand, as I sit here in Cape Town, reaching you digitally, that the global online collaboration, this is around software and all of those kinds of things, and how we are getting to you in front of you right now via your laptop, is also a great area where there is such an extensive opportunity. So just looking at, kind of the digital tools that or how they've been used comparatively from 2019 to 2021, and how they've increased incrementally. And just so that for those who can't see the images, on your left hand side we have collaboration tools. Second from left is your storage or sharing tools, and then third, your training, personal development tools, as well as on your far right, real-time mobile messaging tools. So this is really around, like, what are we actually doing when we are working remotely? What collaboration tools? What brings me to your desktop today? How are we sharing files? How are we uplifting ourselves? When we look at information and personal development and communication, what does that look like, and how this is built, just a great potential and opportunity for lucrative business. So when we look at kind of the collaboration statistics, online collaboration tools scaled up productivity by 30%. This teamwork that's important to employees is around 37%. So, how do we navigate those team spaces as well as recognizing work achievements of work groups and how it's increased the profits by 29%? Also, employees or partners that want to be a part of a workplace with an honest and transparent communication. So, this is just around how important it is for us to collaborate, to connect, how that increases productivity, how recognition of work achievements and work groups really stand to grow our business in a new world. So a lot of times we've seen the shifts from new trends into lifestyles, but I think what's dramatically changed as a result of COVID is how dramatically the workspaces and kind of aging practices have been sort of obliterated in a manner of 2 years, and how we connect and how we work has changed so dramatically, and how are we keeping up to date into working into this new space. So just practically, the idea of collaboration culture, my own business, Nicola Cooper and Associates, is based on my relationships, my networks over a career of 20 years. And it really started as I'm doing cool things, you doing cool things, let's do cool things together. But I think as I've worked within the industry as a consultant on many sort of collaborations, even equally collaborating in boardrooms or brainstorming in boardrooms, which is equally a collaboration setting, is that there's a very defined and definitive line between collaboration and commission. So I think that it's really important, and I think this is one of the pitfalls that many businesses face when they're going into the collaboration space, where defining what is collaboration and defining what is commissioning. So originally, it's just about the idea or practical understanding that collaboration is like two or more people working jointly or working to produce something, as well as, more equitable approaches, which is kind of like the political alignment, business, creativity, and the idea of brands and organizations collaborating, which is, not so readily seen within the spaces. So when I speak about the idea of collaboration versus commission, this is something that when we are involved, and I speak of we as Nicola Cooper and Associates, in a project that is around collaboration, my first question is, are we collaborating or are we commissioning? So the understanding for me in those boardrooms and the clarity for that is really important. Commissioning is, I'm a brand, I'm going to pay you X amount, and I will tell you what I need you to do. Collaboration, on the other hand, is you have skill sets to bring to the party, you have an audience, you have something that I don't necessarily have. Let's work, and I'm saying this quite strongly, together, and then make something or create something. Some of the automatic assumptions around commissioning and collaboration is that when you are, and I mean, I'm sure that many of the consultants in the room also understand this, that the idea of when you are working with another business is the idea that you're working for another business. And this is something that's really important, and it's a key critical game changer in how you work in collaborative spaces. So I think with us in Nicola Cooper and Associates, we learned very early on that we had to define these rules with our clients, that, maybe the culture of your business is that you email people on a Sunday morning. That's not the culture of our business. And so we had to start putting in practices and contracts that say, you know what, we work with you, we don't work for you, and these are our operating hours, this is how we communicate, this is how long to expect. And there's a whole infrastructure that goes around the understanding of collaboration and commissioning. So I think it's really important right from the get-go that we clarify the difference between those two, so I can take you into the power of collaboration. So collaboration is obviously it's a lucrative strategic tool that provides brands with the opportunity to stay relevant and continue to attract their pre-existing and new consumers. Whenever we're working with a brand, we look at, who is their loyal consumers and who is their aspirational consumers, and how do we find that golden thread that speaks to them both, or are we just trying to attain new consumers? Then we need it for it to be an authentic collaboration. And this is in order to attract or gain a wider reach. And I think that most of us have seen collaborations that have done extremely well, and some of us have seen collaborations that have kind of bombed. And this is really around the idea of, when you're working with two brands, whether they're two large brands or a smaller brand and a bigger brand, the importance in navigating those spaces is the fact that it doesn't matter if a brand is smaller, and it doesn't matter if a brand is bigger. There's a compromise in the middle that we need to come to without either one of those brands losing their unique fingerprints in their market. The minute you sort of dilute that, then you are risking either brand's potential. And I think that's a critical sort of element in this. Also, the idea of being able to reach new consumers as well as consumers' ideals for the constant need of newness. So, really, the creative direction when we're looking at a collaborative process is that there's so many sort of opportunities there, including funding and resources, which is something we don't automatically align with when it comes to collaboration. So obviously, we've started seeing collaboration sort of grow incrementally within the South African landscape. I'm very fortunate enough to have been working on a number of these, and also just playing behind the scenes and how we can utilize that to not only grow brands into different directions and into different markets, but equally so speaking to a millennial, Gen Z, and then Gen Alpha sort of consumer, and how important that is when it comes to data and products. So when we look at some of the more established forms of collaboration, our first guess is product collaboration. Okay, cool. Like, it's a brand such as Castle Light. We are interested in creating something with Gugu, and we are going to collaborate. He will create something for us. But then there's also the idea of the cross-pollination marketing that happens. If we are looking at Castle Light as a brand and we are looking at Tebe Magugu, then there's that cross-pollination. Tebe going into a Castle Light sort of market, and equally Castle Light going into a fashion market via Tebe Magugu. But I think it's also really important, even going to my initial point of, commission versus collaboration. And this is something that is really important when you are sitting down with collaborators. We often have these big sky ideas, and we're like, well, we want relevancy, and we want to build sort of grand sort of schemes and emotional connections, when sometimes it is really just increasing the bottom line. It's to sell more goods. And somehow we sort of float around those notions. So I think when you're working in collaborative spaces, it's really important to understand what are the motives and benefits of collaboration. What are we actually trying to do? Because in that respect, then both collaborators are understanding what the key objectives are and how we are going to reach those key objectives together. But when it comes to these, and I think this is something that I have to critically highlight here, is that there are certain skills when we are speaking collaboration. And just because collaboration, or the idea of it, is a trend at present, and I say collaboration very tentatively because it's becoming a very, very dirty word in some of the spaces. But the idea is not everyone and not every business have the key skills. And we're speaking about, some of the softer skills that come in collaboration. So, what are the kind of pitfalls that can happen? One, conflict. Of course, conflict happens. unclear roles and responsibility. There has to be someone that is accountable. And how do we navigate those spaces? Also, in these boardrooms, especially when it comes to large and smaller brands working together, it's not all about you. It's a compromise that you come to, that happy and beautiful, like sweet spot in between, as well as kind of the need to decide who makes that decision, how does it get made, who's the final guy to do it, as well as balancing the talking and doing. We all know in a group project, someone likes to talk and doesn't like to do. Who are those people? How do you make sure that we are clear on these roles and we are playing to people's strengths, as well as the idea of ambiguity. Sorry, I'm falling over my words because I'm trying to go really fast. But the idea of like being unclear, even when you're looking at a more traditional collaboration between yourself as a brand and an influencer, what does that influencer have to do? You need to have clear objectives for them. Otherwise, how do you measure return on investment? How do we look at these spaces and actually utilize them as business tools and not just fluffy words? So, the importance around soft skills is not spoken enough about when we speak about collaboration. And this is really, really critical when you are choosing a team for collaborating. The idea of active listening. Does someone actually listen to what someone else is saying, or are they listening to respond? Written, verbal, and non-verbal communication. If you are rolling in the room, it's not giving a good vibe for collaboration. If you're sighing or if you are fatigued, these all impact the people around you. Building a consensus, as well as receptive communication. The idea of, when we play in these spaces, there's always ego. How do we make sure that we are all on an even playing ground? And then again, I reiterate the idea of collaboration, meaning I work with you, I don't work for you. The sensitivity to gender, race, and religious backgrounds, this is critical. I myself have sat in a number of different meetings, and sometimes my role is just critically to smack someone's hand and say no. Building and managing expectations. Yes, we all love that blue sky, but what is it actually that we really, really want out of this? Because if we don't know what we really want, how do we measure it? Assigning roles and to capitalize on individual strengths. This is something that's even common when you are in a workspace or you are managing a team. I myself believe that in my own business or in my teams, my team does not work for me. I work for them. I make sure that they get everything that they need to succeed. If they are not getting everything that they need to succeed, I am therefore setting them up to fail and therefore setting myself up to fail. So, how do you make sure that we are arming people within this space and recognizing them and empowering them? Facilitating indiscriminate and open discussion. We are allowed to debate. And I think a lot of females in this space will recognize the idea of when we are debating, we are getting emotional or we are too sensitive and all of these kinds of things. Let's just put it out there that most women that are sitting in boardrooms are not emotional. Anyone that's heading up a brand is not emotional, but they are allowed to challenge. And I think when we look in these spaces, and we know, I think a lot of us as female entrepreneurs have been told, I think one of my worst was that I was catching feelings. And that in itself, when you're working with a brand, is not indiscriminate and open discussion. And when we are within those spaces, we are also allowed to challenge those kinds of comments. So also defining potential issues. No project is without an issue. And how do we generate those? So looking at it and saying to ourselves, like, what is the potential fallout here? On a project that we recently worked with, we knew that one of the items we would maybe have to explain. So the PR department and ourselves, we built a reaction to it, whether we needed it or not. But the fact of the matter is, if we needed it, it was there. So when we're looking at collaboration, and specifically around key vocabulary: support, assist, empower, teamwork, partnership, inspiration, process, respect, trust, exchange, communication, share, and reciprocity. Gosh, guys, I'm falling over my words. It's a reciprocal relationship. And I think it's something that's really important for me, is that no matter what relationship you're in, whether it's a partnership or whether you're a boss or whether it's in a team, it's based on a reciprocal relationship. We're giving something and we're getting something in return. And in that way, there is a cost to things if it isn't on a reciprocal front. So yeah, the potential pitfalls are not only, within the actual working team or the team working behind, but also around, scandal, cancel, and call out culture. We know that a number of people, and I mean, if you just look at what's been going on in terms of sort of Kanye West, Kim Kardashian, and anyone else in sort of that popular culture space, is that, you know, what what happens when cancel culture happens. And we've also almost got to preempt, the idea of someone, being able to be called out. And in that case, like, are we actually building a safeguard to make sure that we vetted our collaborators, that we make sure that we know all the ghosts and sort of things in the closet there, and make sure that we are safeguarding those relationships really, really importantly, because at the end of the day, it's both brands that will lose. And often the undoing takes much longer, much more money, and much more work than actually doing it correctly the first time. So when I speak about collaborations, I speak about a number of different collaborations. So when we look at it, I mean, it's crazy to understand that there are sort of multiple avenues. So I'm just going to list some of them and quickly. So endorsements, investment, content collaborations, which is most of the common ones, fan collaborations, charitable collaborations, brand artist collaborations, collective groups, acquisition and product development. This is something we're seeing tremendous amounts of work being done within the South African and African landscape. We're really fortunate enough to be working with some really incredible businesses that are investigating how they can actually buy into localized brands and build them into something really great, as well as looking at cross industry collaborations. For me, this is a really important one, and this is something I try and drive often, is, why aren't brands working with other brands to meet in the middle, to do something quite wonderful? And this kind of cross-brand collaborations and strategic partnerships are really driven by how far we can push these kinds of collaborations. So I think some of the reasons why collaborations are done, one, obviously primary, is to reinvigorate a brand. It's getting a little bit stale, and our market is changing, they are younger, or even how do we reinvigorate a brand that is a Eurocentric brand for a local market? But I think the most important thing when it starts these kinds of conversations about reinvigorating brands is to ask why you are doing it. Why am I doing it? What are we trying to say with this? What are the objectives? What are the clear goals that we have in mind? So one of these has been around North Face, and as you know, North Face has come through like such a dramatic change over the past year to become, gone from a really practical garment that kept you warm and was an outdoors item to collaborating with Gucci in terms of how, from that sort of increment, how it's transferred into street culture, and now beyond street culture into luxury. So I think what's quite interesting is, this campaign was done with a TikTok star, and it was a campaign that took the concept of luxury travel and outdoor excursions to the train station. But as I said, this is brand collaborations. So it's not only the North Face and Gucci, it's equally the TikTok star. And that kind of cross brand collaboration is threefold when you look at it correctly. I'm just going to play you a little bit of an excerpt on how this has been positioned into the market. Thank you, guys.
Welcome aboard the Summit Ascent service. Please remember to take in the exquisite scenery as we go by. The food trolley will be through with plenty of pastries and confectionery. Take care and have a brilliant time. Cheers!
This is quite an interesting one, and I think this is something that is quite unique, and this is the Lay's Do Us a Flavor campaign, in which consumers were asked to submit ideas for a new flavor of the chip company. So it wasn't just, people creating this kind of, okay, cool, like we're going to do something with the product. It actually even infiltrated the sort of product development around the flavoring of it. So, also then, once those sort of elements were sort of shared, is that there was a sort of kind of like, okay, cool, which is your favorite? And I think this is a great way when we speak about engagement, not only through the submission of it, but equally so in terms of the voting of it, so that your consumers become a critical part. So another reason why we do collaboration is to tap into trends in pop culture. As most collaborations are short-term agreements, they are really beneficial to stay relevant. And these kinds of things can change quite quickly, whether it is a capsule collection or whether it is the face of a brand. So partnering up with various other brands that are surrounded, and how you can utilize those associative space to sort of go and move into the forefront or move into a new audience quite seamlessly. The other one is to get noticed. So, a lot of us think that we are constantly speaking to our consumers, and sometimes it really is quite a little bit of an awakening to realize that it maybe isn't meeting where we want it to meet. And also looking at how larger companies can tie into smaller brands, or looking into, I guess, in the marketing space, micro or macro influencers, and looking at how each one of those plays a significant part. So the idea of the lure of it is really important. It's like, what is it that is alluring to your brand, and how can we get that out there? Because that's the important part, whether it is to sort of shift into a more luxurious space, as with sort of Gucci, or how's it looking? The other one is, this kind of cross-industry collaboration, and this is sort of Mercedes-Benz and Prolenza Schuler, and their sort of combination to create a capsule collection that was really based on travel on the open road, utilizing the Mercedes-Benz logo. So it was about sustainable textiles that were sourced, and sort of conscious dyeing and sort of production processes. But again, this is, fashion items that were linked to a car, and how this has sort of evolved the brand a little bit further, more so than just a motor vehicle, into a lifestyle. It's a short clip for you. So I think, we are becoming a little bit over time here. So I'm trying to go as fast as possible, as well as try and articulate what's on the slides that you can't see. But I think the idea of being present as a brand, to maintain brand presence in the market, how do you make sure that you are constantly reaching new consumers? And I think this is a critical one, because often when we are faced with these kinds of conversations in boardrooms, we're always worried about our existing consumer, and not so much about our new consumers and how to bring them on. And I mean, it's inevitable that our consumers are going to age and change, and especially when we are based in such a young continent, that we constantly have to be evolving and targeting new, as well as, how do we reach a wider consumer base? How do you make sure, like in terms of collaboration, that we create those great reaches, that it's reaching in the correct way and reaching the correct people? So I think this also is around, strategic brand partnerships. And I think this is quite interesting when we look at this kind of hybrid universe, and specifically the hacker project that recently happened around the cross and appropriation of authenticity between brands through Gucci and Balenciaga motives that were then sort of hacked and created this completely other sort of brand in itself, or this item into itself. So it's really looking at, sometimes your enemies become your friends, and how you can utilize those even to create something that is critical, that's game changing, as something like this is. I've just included in terms of, a collaborative example. This is around collective groups. This is a project that I was really fortunate enough to be brought in on. And this was, again, the idea of a number of different players, being Coca-Cola Global, Coca-Cola South Africa, as well as the 4 designers that we brought on as collaborators for the Coke Threads project, which was Richard Nisi, Mei Lee, Sol, and Escard. What we did is we created a fashion film, as well as 1,500 garments to be sold as capsule collections within the designer's own retail spaces, and then later on the Superbalist site. What was really interesting about this particular project was, not only did we have to look at how the projects could look like Coca-Cola universally, but also look like each of those designers, and then how each of those designers' elements could be integrated to create more unique looks. So a Richard Nisi collection could be worked in with a Sol, and a Mei Lee, and an Escort to create something completely different. So it was interesting to see that when we were even building the range, that we were building a range that could work with each other. We were also building a range that had a variety of price points. Someone might not be able to buy the Richard Nisi jacket, but they could buy the Richard Nisi sock. There's a reason why luxury brands like Louis Vuitton sell keychains. So I'm just going to share with you the Coke Threads fashion film. Between the first collaboration with Coke Threads and the Richard Nisi Adidas collection, and how, though it's the same designer working with 2 different brands, how the aesthetic changes, not only in terms of, what it looks like from a Coca-Cola perspective, utilizing Richard Nisi style, to how Richard Nisi style is then applied on a global product. So it's such an interesting space to play in, and you can see just from one designer how dramatically different the outcome can be. Also looking at fan collaborations. We all have iPhones, we all have smartphones, encouraging people to incorporate that, as iPhone has done. I mean, I think at the very start of the iPhone sort of iPhoneography space is that, it was iPhone that really changed that space around content production. And now what we're seeing is how iPhones and Apple are reclaiming that space that they created originally. Also, I think what's critically important, and we've seen this in terms of Nike with the Caster Semenya, I think that Colin Kaepernick is the idea of activism. We also saw it over the past couple of years of the ideas of Black Lives Matter, Me Too movements, you name it. How brands are now not only wanting to, but sometimes being forced to communicate a social or political stance. Those black squares on Instagram are no longer enough. What are you doing to change those things? And this is around even in the way that your business works. If we are collaborating or we are representing a certain market, is that market represented in the boardroom that we are sitting at? Also, the idea of altering brand perception and product use. I think it's really important to understand that our consumers' needs are shifting and growing all the time. And the ideas of, beauty or those kinds of things are shifting. So how do we make sure that we maintain those shifting perspectives? So again, I just wanted to share another project that we worked on, which is the Carling Black Label, No Excuse for Abuse. This launched last year in sort of November-ish, and this was a multi-pronged collaboration. Again, we worked with client, which is SAB, and the brand around their No Excuse campaigns on the importance of being able to highlight the fact that intimate partner abuse is unacceptable. This was not only with the brand, but it was equally so with the influencers at the launch of the brand, who were then invited to speak on, how to generate safe, intimate partner spaces. We also collaborated with fashion designer Suzanne Haynes to bring a dress to it, as well as filmmaker Janet Ron. And I'm going to just show you that film.
He was sweet, loving. He was everything I need from a man. Got married, and that's when he became more violent.
He was a loving husband.
So now she belongs to me.
If they don't value, they will step you. When he's beating, he will do it where people cannot see it.
I promise you, it's a monster. It's a monster.
Emshadweni noma ngizange ngithole uphumulo ngiphile nge-abuse. I got a scar. It's my husband.
So I think I've just thrown a whole bucket of information at you today around collaboration, the various methods on how to do that. And I have gone a little bit over time. My apologies. I was trying to read off the screen so you guys could get a clear view. Thank you ever so much to Bizcommunity, BizTrends 2022 for having me on this invaluable platform. And it was an honor to reach all of you right in front of you via your desktop. Thank you so much.